What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I wanted to talk about the housing system situation with Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves, they decided to drop their satisfaction survey for version 2.1, and in that survey they asked us, for in-game content, what do you want to see more in the game? Now my response to that one, I just checked most of the things on there, because when it comes to mini games in the housing system, I really don't care that much, because those type of events, or let's say game modes, like those are just optional. Like, I don't really care about that, to be honest. If they're gonna put in more rewards in the housing system, then I can see that as a problem, especially for people who don't really care about the housing system like me. But to say that the housing system will, would destroy Wuthering Waves, I feel like that's a huge reach, and I'm just gonna go ahead and explain why. So let's go ahead and switch on over here. That was the wrong tab, guys. That was the wrong tab. But when we go ahead over here on Windows, I'm gonna go ahead and prove my point to y'all. Prove my point. So when we take a look at games like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, right? Now for Genshin Impact, whenever they release a developer's note, so whenever they release a developer's discussion, when we take a look at this developer's discussion, right? The issue with Genshin Impact, and the reason why I feel like a lot of players are panicking because of the housing system that's probably going to be added into Wuthering Waves, is because they're just traumatized because of Genshin Impact. Like, when we look at Genshin, Genshin prioritizes features that nobody cares about. They prioritize, certain teapot, TCG, versus actually focusing on things that players want in the game, like, permanent content, permanent events, permanent game modes. Like, instead of the developers actually listening to their players and implementing game modes and content that players want in the game, they're focusing on amplifying their housing system, adding mail into the game, and just updating TCG. And that's where Genshin Impact failed at. Meanwhile, for Wuthering Waves, it's like, all right, for Wuthering Waves, they do have events, they do have these little, mini games in their game. They don't have a housing system yet, but that is not the main priority for these developers. Like, whenever they drop a dev note, whenever they drop update maintenance or whatever, you guys can see that they're mostly focusing on events like tactical hologram, events like Whimpering Waste. The fact that Whimpering Race is now a permanent game mode, is literally in-game content. Wuthering Waves has more in-game content than Genshin Impact, and Wuthering Waves has only been out for like a couple months. Like, the game hasn't even been out for a year, and they already have more content than Genshin Impact. For Genshin Impact, you just have Spiral Abyss, you have Mario Party, TCG that nobody cares about, certain teapot that nobody gives a flying fuck about, and you have this other game mode that isn't really that crazy, to be honest. So, Genshin Impact, they clearly failed at, implementing things that players actually want in the game. It's like they're in their own separate room focusing on implementing Mario Party events that nobody gives a fuck about. And if Wuthering Waves decides to do the same exact thing, then yes, you can definitely say that mini games or housing system will definitely destroy Wuthering Waves, because they're prioritizing these game modes, they're prioritizing mini games versus actually implementing meaningful content. Like, when we look at version 5.4 for Genshin Impact, the entire update was a complete flop. It was a joke because the developers implemented Mario Party events that nobody cares about. The story was absolutely dog shit, and that was pretty much it for the update. No new area, absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, for Wuthering Waves, it's like, all right, for version 2.1, it was a filler update, but look, they added new regions, they added a new area, which is the Vault Underground, Recolite Islands. We have the new fishing event, where you can actually get, a free 4-star weapon. We also have Apex Raguna, which is like a featured co-op overdash event. A lot of people actually enjoyed this mini event, this mini game. I enjoyed it. You're racing against other players. It was pretty fun. You have Beyond the Waves, which is like a featured exploration event. Infinite Battle Simulation, Tactical Simulacra, Old Man in the World, that was the fishing event. So they added more content that players are actually interested in, versus adding Mario Party events and focusing on things like, let's say, once they implement a housing system, I don't think Cruel Games, they're going to prioritize the housing system versus things like tactical hologram. I think Wuthering Waves, the game is known for having challenges, really tough bosses like okay, however you say her name, Hakate, and tactical hologram, right? So that's the difference between both games, right? And I feel like people who are just genuinely um like people who are afraid that Wuthering Waves might fail because of the housing system, yes, it's an overreaction, but I understand where they're coming from because we've seen it happen to Genshin Impact, them implementing TCG, and the fact that most of their updates, like when we come over to the Genshin Impact website, I mean, you guys can see we have new area, which is dope, but at the same time, it's like it's literally like nothing too serious. Like these events are just horrible. Like nobody cares about these events because it's just mini games. Mini games, mini games, mini games. That's exactly what Genshin Impact focuses on. They focus on mini games. They'll rather focus on implementing, you know, content that nobody cares about. They'll rather focus on updating mini games versus actually implementing, raid bosses, implementing more permanent game modes in the game. Like let's say Genshin Impact decide to add their version of tactical hologram. That would be very dope. But of course, they're not willing to do that because they just want to focus on these Mario Party events, these low effort events that nobody gives a flying fuck about. Like you look at this for version 5.5, all we have is a new boss, a new area, version events, and the events aren't even that crazy. We have like 2 combat events or 3 combat events, but not a single combat event is permanent. They never make these combat events permanent. And then you also have like, you guys can see these just filler events that nobody cares about. So if Wuthering Waves walks down this path where whenever they're implementing, mini games in the housing system in their game, if they decide to prioritize that over other content that players actually want in a game, then that's definitely going to be a problem. So I can see both sides of the argument. I can see people saying that, you're not winning a housing system in Wuthering Waves is just an overreaction because we look at Punishing Gray Raven, that game has a housing system. A lot of gacha games have a housing system, right? But the real question is, are the developers going to focus on is the housing system and these new mini games, is that going to be their priority, or are they just going to implement that as like some secondary thing into the game where we're just going to put a housing system in some mini games, just to keep you busy, but we're still focusing on implementing more challenging events, more engaging events that makes you want to log into the game and actually have fun. We're still going to focus on that as like our number 1 priority. If that's what they're going to do, then that's totally fine. I just hope that they don't take Genshin Impact's like they don't do the same exact thing that Genshin Impact did, where Genshin Impact decided to implement TCG, and that's what they're only focusing on right now, because that's literally what Genshin Impact is focusing on when it comes to mini games and content. They're mostly focusing on Serenity Pot and TCG. They're constantly updating TCG. Like every single time they drop a trailer, a version update trailer, they always say, oh guys, guess what, we updated TCG. Who fucking cares, man? Who cares? Why can't you guys implement things that we want in the fucking game? Where's the artifact loadouts? Where's the fucking skip button? Where is it at, man? Why are you guys focusing on the most mediocre shit that nobody asked for? The mail system. Nobody cares about that. If Wuthering Waves didn't have a skip button, if they didn't have artifact loadouts, if they had horrible events, no combat events, no in-game content, and they're like, hey guys, for version 2.2, we're going to add a housing system, I would completely understand the outrage, because you guys are not even focusing on implementing things that your players want in the game. Instead, you're focusing on implementing a housing system, a card game. Meanwhile, the game doesn't even have a fucking skip button. Players don't even have the option to skip the story and enjoy the game their own way. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's completely understandable. But for Wuthering Waves, it is like a completely different story, because we have things like Tactical Hologram. We have Whimpering Waste. We have all these content in the game, these co-op events. There's so much content in Wuthering Waves. And they're like, well, we're just going to release a housing system, as like an additional thing, as like a side thing. It's not going to be our main focus. It's just going to be, something, it's just going to be there permanently, just in case you want to get in there and do whatever you want. We're just going to put that there. I think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair. And considering how Cruel Games, Wuthering Waves, it's known for being like the better version of Genshin Impact, maybe the housing system is going to be way better than Serenity Pot. Because when it comes to Serena Teapot, there is literally a limit to how much furniture you can place in Serena Teapot, which is absolute dog shit. So maybe their housing system is going to be way better than not Wuthering Waves, but Genshin Impact. And if that's the case, then that can be very good. Imagine they give us more tuners in the housing system. Imagine in this housing system we get more astrites, we get more resources for just simply placing furniture or characters in this, housing system. That would be pretty interesting. Like, they can take what Genshin Impact did and make it better, because let's be honest, guys, that's what Wuthering Waves is known for. For the people who say that Wuthering Waves is a direct copy of Genshin Impact, sure, I agree. The game is definitely a copy of Genshin Impact, but they're doing everything that Genshin Impact is doing, but 10 times better. And I think that's fine, because you can say the same exact thing for Genshin Impact and Zelda. Genshin Impact is doing the same exact thing that Zelda did. Open world exploration, but just a gacha version. That's what people classify the Genshin Impact as. But if we were to compare Zelda to Genshin Impact, Genshin is worse than Zelda. Sure, Zelda is not a gacha game, but I would still play Zelda versus Genshin Impact. And that really just shows you guys why Genshin Impact is just seriously not a good game, because they fail to improve the game. It doesn't matter how much resources they have. They have so much fucking money and they fail to improve the game. Meanwhile, Kuro Games, Wuthering Waves, they're making less money than Genshin Impact and they're still making the game better. So honestly, my whole take when it comes to the whole housing system thing, it's not like the developers came out and said, hey guys, we're going to implement housing systems in the game. They just put that in the survey to see what we think. We don't know if they're going to implement it. We don't know if they're going to implement it in version 2.5, 2.3, or probably in version 5.0. We have no clue. We have no idea. But let's not sit here and pretend that the housing system being implemented in Wuthering Waves is somehow going to kill the game and make it seem as if all the things that the developers did in Wuthering Waves isn't good. Like, they listened to us, they added artifact loadouts, they added a skip button, the story is pretty decent, you can skip the story if you don't like the story. The game is doing pretty well right now. And if they want to add a housing system, if it ends up being dog shit, we can send them feedback and let them know that this system is horrible and you guys need to fix it, or you can remove it from the game. Because the difference between Kuro Games and Hoyoverse is that Kuro Games is actually willing to take the opportunity to listen to their players. Meanwhile, for Hoyoverse, they release developer discussions like this. Let me go ahead and fix my screen real quick. Where's the screen? There it is. They release things like this where, oh, we're going to put in mail. We're going to put in Gmail in Genshin Impact. All right, we're going to put in Gmail. Who fucking cares? Right? Who fucking cares? For Wuthering Waves, hey guys, when are you going to add, artifact loadouts? Oh, we got y'all. Artifact loadouts will be in version 2.1. Wuthering Waves, can you guys remove tune? Can you guys do something about, tuners and the Echo EXP thing? Sure, we got you. We're going to do something about that. I mean, they didn't do anything about it yet, but maybe they will. And when they do, then that's really, really good. Hey, Wuthering Waves, can you guys, for the new region, can we fly in a new region? Sure, we got you. You don't need to summon for new characters. Every character has the ability to fly in this new region. Even old characters or characters from the 1.x region, they can still fly as well. It doesn't really matter. So, hey, they're doing, I wouldn't say Wuthering Waves are doing everything right, but if we were to look at Wuthering Waves and Genshin Impact, they're definitely doing way better than Genshin Impact. So if they decide to implement a housing system, they definitely, I'll say that if they want to add a housing system, they can do it. They can go ahead and do it. They have my permission. They have the community's permission. I'm not going to speak for the community, but me personally, they have my permission because they've been doing everything pretty well. And I think that if they're going to implement a housing system, they can actually make it very, very good. And there's a possibility that's going to be dog shit. Who knows? But just because Genshin Impact messed up in all these things, it doesn't mean that Wuthering Waves we should just, restrict them from doing the same thing but better. See what I'm saying? So tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. That's pretty much my whole take on it. Feel free to disagree, feel free to agree. Tell me what you guys think. But I hope you guys have a good one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Adios.